The real basketball legends are made in the playoffs. While having a great regular season is awesome, in the grand scheme of things, it doesn't matter how great you are during the regular season if you can't make a name for yourself in the playoffs. After all, what would Michael Jordan be without his great playoff performances? We would look at him differently. But even the great ones have had their fair share of bad performances. Hey guys, this is Purple Prince, and today we're looking at the greatest NBA players and their worst games in the playoffs. Number 1. Michael Jordan. We obviously will start this list with the GOAT, Michael Jordan. He's had a bunch of great playoff moments over the years, but the May 26th game against Miami Heat wasn't one of them. In the 1997 Eastern Conference Finals, the Michael Jordan-led Chicago Bulls were facing off against Tim Hardaway, Alonzo Mourning, and the Miami Heat. Chicago was leading the series 3-0 with Game 4 scheduled in Miami. Game 4 was sloppy, as Scottie Pippen made just 5 of 17 shots, but what was even more surprising was Michael Jordan's performance. If you take a look at naked stats, you see that he scored 29 points and grabbed 8 boards. Seems like a casual day at work, but when you look deeper, you can see that Jordan was very ineffective. Michael went 9 from 35 from the field and missed all 8 of his 3-point attempts. Additionally, he had just 1 assist. Chicago Bulls lost that game, but won the next one to win the series and eventually win the NBA championship. Still, this performance from Jordan was unexpected. Number 2. LeBron James. The next one on this list is LeBron James. When people compare LeBron to Jordan as all-time greats, the first thing they bring up is Jordan's record in the NBA Finals. The next thing they can hold against LeBron is his failures in the playoffs. Even though LeBron has had pretty much no weak games during the playoffs in recent years, he did have his fair share of bad games earlier in his career. I was eager to talk about his awful performance in Game 1 of the 2008 Eastern Conference Finals against Boston. He almost collected a triple-double with 12 points, 9 rebounds and 9 assists, but did so while committing 10 turnovers and going 2 of 18 from the field. That was bad. But considering the importance, LeBron's worst performance came in the 2011 NBA Finals. Miami was up in the series against Dallas Mavericks 2-1, and then the Game 4 happened. LeBron was passive. He collected 8 points, 9 rebounds and 7 assists, but took just 11 shots and made 3 of them. 4 turnovers to add salt to the wounds, and he absolutely disappeared in clutch. Miami lost the game and then lost the next 2. This was probably the most disappointing performance of any superstar in the modern age, and it still gets held against LeBron whenever the discussion about the greatest player ever is revived. Number 3. Kareem AbdulJabbar. The best scorer in NBA history, Kareem AbdulJabbar has one of the best playoff resumes, but even he isn't bulletproof. In Game 5 of the 1982 NBA Finals against Philadelphia, the Los Angeles Lakers had a chance to finish the series. Kareem had a chance to capture his 3rd championship, but went MIA instead. The Lakers lost by 33 points, and in 28 minutes, Kareem had just 6 points, 4 assists and 4 rebounds. He attempted just 6 shots, went to the free throw line 2 times, missed both, and collected 5 personal fouls. 5 players on the Lakers alone out-rebounded Kareem, which was just unimaginable. Philadelphia forced Game 6, but in the end, the Lakers won the game and the title. Kareem was much better in Game 6. With 18 points, 11 rebounds and 5 blocks, he helped the Lakers to win the series and got himself the 3rd title. Number 4. Magic Johnson. Let's look at another Laker. Magic Johnson had an awesome career and awesome playoff runs, but he's also suffered some disappointing losses. There are several candidates for the worst playoff game. You could say that Game 7 loss in the 1984 NBA Finals was a bad performance, as Magic turned the ball over 7 times, but he also had 16 points, 15 assists and 4 steals. You could also mention his worst performance was his Game 1 of the 1987 Western Conference Finals against Seattle. Magic Johnson had a good performance stat-wise, as he collected 19 points, 11 assists and 7 rebounds, but 9 of those points came from free throws. He turned the ball over 4 times and shot just 5 of 18 from the field. But in my eyes, his worst outing was Game 6 of the 1988 Western Conference semifinals against Utah Jazz. In 31 minutes, Magic Johnson had 10 points, 9 assists and 6 rebounds. He also had 3 turnovers and shot just 3 of 12 from the field. The Lakers lost big that game, but ultimately won Game 7 and eventually went on to the NBA Finals, where Magic won his 5th championship. Number 5. Wilt Chamberlain. We move on to Wilt Chamberlain, one of the greatest players ever and quite possibly the most dominant player ever to play in the NBA. He wasn't so dominant in Game 7 of the 1969 NBA Finals though. The stats say otherwise, as he scored 18 points and grabbed 27 rebounds, but more importantly, he sat out the last 5 minutes of the game and the Lakers ended up losing to the Celtics. That was painful. Strictly individually though, you could say that his worst performance came a year earlier in the 1968 Eastern Division Finals again against Boston Celtics. In Game 7, Wilt Chamberlain casually grabbed his 34 boards, scored 14 points, but attempted only 9 shots and made 4 of them. Chamberlain also made just 40% of his free throws and took just 1 shot in the whole second half. What makes this all worse is the fact that Game 7 win marked a comeback for the Celtics from a 3-1 deficit. Very sad. Number 6. Bill Russell. By the end of the 60s, both Wilt and Russell weren't the same. Ironically enough, both friends, legends, and rivals had the worst performances against each other. The whole 1969 NBA Finals offensively were horrible for Russell. To be honest, he was the player coach, so he had a lot of stuff to deal with, and he was 35 years old already, and that ended up being his last NBA season. Game 5 of the 1969 NBA Finals was especially bad. Bill Russell scored just 7 points, made 3 of 5 field goals and grabbed 13 rebounds, which sounds a lot, but he was a player that constantly grabbed 20 plus boards, and Wilt just quite frankly out-rebounded him and grabbed 31 boards. Boston Celtics lost that game and put the Lakers in prime spot to close out and win the championship in 6 games. But Boston did bounce back though and won Games 6 and 7 to capture Russell's last, 11th championship. Number 7. Tim Duncan. Sticking with big men, we go to Tim Duncan. In my eyes, the best power forward ever, had a long and illustrious career. But in Game 1 of the 2008 Western Conference semifinals, he just wasn't himself. In 37 minutes of game time, Duncan made just 1 of 9 shots, collected only 5 points, 3 rebounds and 3 steals. He was thoroughly outplayed by the New Orleans frontcourt in David West and Tyson Chandler. San Antonio lost by 19 points, and actually everyone else on their team performed, except Duncan. Parker had 23 points, Ginobili had 19, heck, even Bruce Bowen added 17. But for one time on that day, the Spurs missed the big fundamental. The series eventually went to 7 games and San Antonio ended up winning, in large part because Duncan never had as bad of a game as Game 1 of that series. Number 8. Larry Bird. Larry Legend was once-in-a-generation type of player. One of his greatest qualities on the court was his great shooting ability, and that has brought many great memories to the Celtics fans. One unclutch moment of his career is Game 4 of the 1985 Eastern Conference Finals against the Philadelphia 76ers. Boston had a chance to sweep the Sixers, but instead were missing their best shooter, as Bird shot just 4 of 15 from the field and had 8 turnovers. Bird finished the game with a stat line of 14 points, 6 assists and 7 rebounds, but his late game execution, as well as overall poor shooting night, was a big reason why Boston lost that game. Bird wasn't good in Game 5 as well, shooting just 6 of 18 from the field, but this time he had just 2 turnovers, and the Celtics won by 2 points to make the NBA Finals. Number 9. Kobe Bryant. If you watched Kobe Bryant, you know he isn't afraid to rack up them shots. Sometimes though, his relentless shooting lost the Lakers some games, and that was the case in his first ever NBA Finals in 2000. In Game 5 of the 2000 NBA Finals against the Indiana Pacers, Kobe Bryant had a chance to close out the series and win his first NBA championship. He had a big partner in crime as well in Shaq ONeal, but on that rare occasion, Kobe disappointed. He shot just 1 3-pointer, missed it, but in total went just 4 from 20 from the field, didn't even attempt a free throw, and lost the game by 33 points. This one's on Kobe, as Shaq scored 35 points and had 11 boards. Kobe himself had a stat line of 8 points, 5 rebounds and 3 assists. In typical Kobe fashion, what do you do when you don't make shots? Shoot more. And he did in Game 6 when he racked up 27 shots and made 8 of them. Only this time, the Lakers won and Kobe celebrated his first championship. And number 10, Shaquille O'Neal. Speaking of Kobe's partner in crime, Shaquille O'Neal's worst playoff performance didn't come as a Laker. It was 2006. Shaq was already on the downside of his career, but still had a strong regular season for the Miami Heat, averaging 20 points and 9 rebounds. The fact that he was still capable of delivering good performances only makes his worst performance that much more surprising. In Game 3 of the 2006 NBA Eastern Conference First Round Series against the Chicago Bulls, Shaquille O'Neal played just 24 minutes, had only 8 points, 4 rebounds, a whopping 7 turnovers, and went 0 from 6 from the free throw line. In large part because of his awful performance, the Miami Heat lost Game 3 by 19 points. But hey, it was all good, as Shaq was the one who beat the Bulls in Game 6, scoring 30 points and grabbing 20 rebounds. And to totally forget his bad performance in Game 3, Miami went on to win the 2006 NBA Championship. Nice ending. Thanks for watching, guys. There are a lot of superstars I could make a video like this about, so most likely this video will have a part 2 and maybe even more. Do you agree with this list, or maybe you have anything to add? Please leave a comment below. If you enjoyed the video, please leave a like and don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel. Thanks. This was Purple Prince, and I'm out.
Would never miss this room, be true diamond. Would never leave you, baby, close if trying. Would never take another cause you wanna touch. Laugh with a kiss and not do it till she blush. Then I'm in a rush, in my dry with a smoke. Then I'm taking spins, first I love her, then I don't. Pour another cut away, all we do is smoke. Pulling out with a 6 till we passing out. All my boys smoke, yeah, we taking